All right, what's going on, everybody? I was thinking about this morning, uh, and kind of looking back on the show a little bit, and just hearing a lot of the comments, and I found myself asking, is it good for boxing that Canelo lost? Because when you think about it, the build up during a Canelo fight, right? You always hear people say, "Well, if it goes to the scorecards, Canelo's always going to get the decision, right?" And then you kind of hear about this, the big divide in the fans, right? You have this, this rivalry, right? Either like it seems like people either love or hate Canelo. There's really not a middle ground, right? And then there's like all these demands that Canelo usually makes. Now, he went into the fight yesterday, and excuse me, not yesterday, Saturday with Bivol, right? He wasn't the champion, right? But Bivol goes into the ring first, gets announced first. So even when Canelo is not the champion, he gets treated like the champion. So there's kind of like this diva perception with Canelo, and then Canelo can fight whoever he wants. I mean, obviously he can, but just by him saying that, does that mean he's not going to give the fans the fights they want? And like I said, going back to all the controversy, well, if it goes to the decision, Canelo, whether he wins or loses, he's gonna get the decision. I mean, is that really good for boxing? Is that like when I hear stuff like that, it just kind of makes me say to myself, why does it always have to be controversy? Why does it always have to be this cloud over the sport of boxing? Why does it always have to be this shadiness going on, or the perception of the shadiness going on behind the scenes, right? So with Canelo losing, right, even though those scorecards were close, I thought it was a 9-3 fight like many others. Some people had 10-2. You could even argue. The more I watched the fight a couple of times, the more I watch it, the more one-sided it looks to me, if I'm being honest. But now that he finally lost, first time he's lost since the Mayweather fight. It's been about 9 years since he's lost, right? Finally, he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt on the scorecards. Well, he shouldn't have got the benefit of the doubt anyways. But when I heard that 115 and 113, I was like, wow, is it going to happen again? But finally, when it didn't happen again, it was almost like a breath of fresh air, right? So now is that stigma gone, right? The stigma gone that, if you fight Canelo, you have to knock him out to win, because if it goes to the cards, you're not going to get the decision. And not only that, too, like all these other guys waiting around to win the Canelo sweepstakes. Well, now that he lost, will these other guys move on? Right? Will they fight each other now, because they know that they're not going to be able to fight him right away? And not only that, there's some of these matchups that we thought were going to be heavily favored in Canelo's way. Now that these matchups become more intriguing and more interesting, right? Obviously, Canelo was the face of boxing, still is the face of boxing pretty much, right? Does attract a lot of eyeballs to the sport, but like all that negative stuff, like I just mentioned, and the whole diva thing, the whole diva treatment with Canelo, and a lot of fighters, in his position, do the same things, and they've done the same things. But the one thing you could say, when Floyd Mayweather was on top, you never had that stigma of, oh, if the fight's close and it goes to the decision, will the right guy win? Because Mayweather always really, with the exception of the Castillo fight, and you can argue the Maidana fight, but really the Castillo fight, with the exception of that fight, most of his fights were controversy free, right? He didn't really get so-called gift decisions, right? And even De La Hoya, when he was the face of boxing, it actually went the other way. That Trinidad fight, a lot of people thought he won, and it ended up losing that fight, right? Shane Mosley fight, the second one, everyone thought he won that fight pretty much, but Mosley got the decision. So even being the A side, And being the face of boxing, he wasn't always given the benefit of the doubt on the scorecards. But it just seemed like Canelo was always getting the benefit of the doubt on the scorecards, even when fights, you know, that we didn't think were close. Like a lot of people didn't think that Arislandi Lara fight was close. Some people had it 8-4. Some people even had it 9-3. Right. So now that that stigma's gone, right, that's a good thing. Right. So it looks like the division's wide open now. And will Bivol get the rematch? I guess they're saying that he will because Canelo did exercise the rematch clause, right? Did exercise the rematch clause, but the question is, it's going to be at 175 or it's going to be at 168? You know, and we keep going back to that size thing, and again, to me, that fight on Saturday reminded me of how Floyd Mayweather beat him. He beat him with speed and foot movement and intelligence and counterpunching, right? You know, it's crazy. We like to go back in time and we like to make comparisons about the old fighters. But what about Ray Leonard when he went from 160 and he challenged Donny Lalonde for the 168-pound title and 175-pound title? Little Ray Leonard. Donny Lalonde said, this guy's crazy. He's basically a welterweight, really. He wasn't even a real 160-pounder. And he's looking to challenge me for the 168-pound title and 175-pound title, right? Donny Lalonde is bigger than Dimitri Bivol. He ended up moving up to cruiserweight, right? So Ray Leonard ended up knocking him out. The much smaller Leonard ended up knocking him out, right? So I'm hearing things like, oh, well, Bivol was just too big. I mean, Canelo couldn't hurt him. Yeah, Canelo couldn't hit him. He was outlanded in every round. And again, you know, I'm not a big punch stat guy. I don't think they're the be all end all. But like I said, there are a lot of times when those punch stats do kind of reflect upon what happened in the fight, right? And according to those punch stats, Canelo never landed double digits in that fight, right? So just all of the controversy, just like these conversations we're having, like even when he loses, you can't just say the other guy was a more skillful fighter. Oh, this was the wrong weight class. He was too small. Listen, Canelo has been undersized ever since he moved up to 160, right? He's always going to be the shorter guy. He's always going to, for the most part. I don't think there's going to be anyone at 168 that he's going to. Is there anyone at 168 that he's actually going to be taller than if he fights him? Benavidez is another guy. He's about 6'1". Charlo's like 6 feet, right? Caleb Plant was 6'1". Oh, well, Bivol, because of the size, Canelo couldn't hurt him. I mean, did you see Bivol's arm? It was all red. It was all red, right? So, I mean, he just couldn't catch. He just couldn't catch him. He just couldn't land the shots. So if you're not going to land the shots, you're not going to hurt him. And besides Amir Khan, who was undersized in his fight with Canelo, who wasn't the greatest, he didn't have the greatest chin in the world. Who is like Canelo one punch knocked out, like at 160 or above? Who's he ever like just knocked out with one shot? Look at the shots Golovkin was taking from him, right? So just look at that. So this whole thing about, Canelo is too small, whatever. Again, he's a short guy. He's 5'8". I mean, he said he walks around at 181. Bivol says he walks around at like 184, 185. Is there really that much of a difference? Oh, of course, Bivol's taller. But like I said, everyone's going to be taller. Does taller actually mean bigger? Bivol's not a big guy. Bivol's like the same height as me, and I weigh like 200 pounds, bro. You put me next to like 200, 205. You put me next to Bivol, you're gonna see a significant size advantage in my favor, obviously. So just because you're tall doesn't mean you're big, right? Doesn't always mean like you're big. You're bigger than. You're taller than. but you're not. Doesn't mean you're like bigger than in terms of weight. They were probably separated by 2 or 3 pounds the night of the fight. Bivol was not visibly bigger. He was taller. He was not bigger. His look at Canelo's back, his chest, and his arms. Bivol is not bigger. He's not bigger. I don't know what you saw, but bigger. Bivol is small. He weighed 183 pounds the night of the fight. Or some of these other light heavyweights are weighing like 195, close to 200. He's not a big guy. Not a big guy, if I'm being honest. Not a big guy. So yeah, because of all the negativity that has surrounded Canelo, not to any fault of his own, to be honest. You know, just the diva treatment he was getting, and this whole controversy. Like every time you fight him with the scorecards and stuff, oh, if he could close the decision. Now that he finally like lost, and there was no shenanigans, there was almost some shenanigans. I mean, if Bivol lost the last round, it would have been a draw. But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like a breath of fresh air now that he's losing. I think it is kind of good for boxing. I think it opens things up. I think it lets other fighters know that if I fight Canelo, I can get a fair shake now. Now that he's lost, a little bit of that stigmatism is going to be gone, and hopefully these other guys will fight each other now. But I'd rather see Bivol versus Better Beef. I just don't see Canelo. Canelo was just thoroughly outclassed, thoroughly outboxed. This to me is just a bad style matchup. So I think it's a bad move if he fights him again. But I wouldn't mind if Bivol did go down to 168 and tried to be undisputed at 168. I have a feeling that could be the case. That may be the next fight. That may be the next fight. So I think that's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting. But I actually do think that thinking about it now, I think it is kind of good for boxing that Canelo did lose, like I said. And we'll see what happens next. We'll definitely see what happens next. But that's about all I have to say, man. Make sure you guys check out Maestro Boxing at 5 o'clock with KDT, mano a mano. And make sure you check out D-Style tonight, I believe at 9 o'clock Eastern time. He's going to be doing his Aftermath show as well. I just thought I'd jump on and talk about that for a little bit. Curious to see what you guys think. But I know that, there's still going to be the Canelo fanboys out there, and there's still going to be the Canelo haters out there. So nothing's going to change in regards to that. But I'm finally glad to see that, even though it was a little closer than I thought it should be, at least the right guy won, and there was no fuckery with the scorecards. All right, guys, Beaver's out. Talk to y'all soon. 8:30 Eastern time for a D-Style show. I'm sorry about that. Beaver's out. Talk to y'all soon. Have a great night, man. Talk to y'all soon. Be good. Peace.